What is up, guys? Welcome back to the MLG Esports Report. It is Puckett here with Benson, and a little bit later we got Pro League.
We do.
But for now, we got to jump into our Pro League recap. It all went a little bit crazy last night. I got home around 12:45.
Couple game fives.
A few game fives. A little sleepy still this morning. My brain's not working 100% yet, but it was pretty awesome. You know, we saw several round 11s in Search and Destroy. Epsilon struggling in probably the most important game for them last night. Then we saw, you know, some intense stuff on Skyrise to close out the night. I know you're going to be taking a look at the map preview a little bit later. And, of course, we got to talk about the upcoming matches for this evening. Faze versus Optic. Everyone's been talking about it on Twitter all day. Also, TCM, we're going to see Eggs and TP back together for the first time since Cole.
I'm excited to see TCM play later on today. I think it's going to be good. Obviously, the first game in the Pro League as well. Looking to start strong. We've seen a couple of teams start a little bit slow, so TCM definitely need to start off in the right direction.
All right, well, talking about teams that started off strong, we saw it right away yesterday when FaZe went up against Elevate. Coming into this, it was kind of split with our caster predictions, but most people selected FaZe, I think, at the end. Maven tried to talk me into going with Elevate.
Did he really?
I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't. That's, Elevate looking okay on their first day, but here's a look at some of the action from when they faced off against FaZe. You know, Elevate got off to the hot start, and I was looking through. Clayster, he had his job kind of locked in. Zuma was playing pretty well, but it was a slow start for Enable and Attach. They got it going a little bit later on in the game, but I was kind of expecting a stronger FaZe to come charging out of the gates than what we saw on their first night.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the same can be said with the likes of Optic Gaming as well. You know, they've kind of started slow. Those two top seeds that everyone's kind of looking at, not really with huge starts, but you have to give big props, especially in this map number 1, really to Zuma and Attach. Some great hill congestion, and you know, they narrowly pull away. I think it was a 16-point margin by the end of it, a 195 to a 179-point game. But you know, a win is a win, Chris. Doesn't matter how it comes.
Absolutely. Now it all kind of came down to this final hard point at the top before going to the back of the map. You saw top control by FaZe really in the second half of the game. This is where they were able to pull away and shut down Elevate. It was kind of neck and neck all the way up until minute 9, and you can see there on the 4th hard point just the dominant performance from FaZe. 59 to just 25 when it came to the top parking lot.
And of course that takes into account both rotations of hard points, and the reason that number is so inflated there, Chris, is because in the second rotation, FaZe shut Elevate out with a huge 45 points to 0. They didn't allow them to get a single point. Not 1 point.
It was pretty amazing, the Bow play. They had A Street locked down when you saw Elevate charge up. Then they switched over to B, went back over to A. They were just more clutch. You had Zuma attached to it, and a nice job applying pressure down the middle as well. So overall, a great effort by FaZe, and I think that was kind of the hurdle. If they could get past game number 1, they were going to be feeling confident, and we saw that really coming into game number 2.
Yeah, Biolab, Search and Destroy. FaZe, as you mentioned, looking very, very strong. I mean, you know, heading into this, both teams exchanging rounds, kind of back and forth, very much similar to the hard point, where it just seemed neck and neck until towards the very, very end. There was some big plays.
This was the big play here. You got slacked up in a 1v1 against Attach, and Attach just dives on the bomb and goes for the straight defuse. Slack learned his lesson a little bit later in the game, but that was kind of the tide turner, because this is when FaZe started to get some confidence. The very last round, you see, of course, the bomb being planted here by Clayster. Once again, some 1v1 action against Slack.
Yeah, Clayster, just such an experienced player. You kind of expect him to play these situations just extremely well. And ultimately, basically what he does is manage to clutch out the round. But going back to the Attach clutch, now, coming into the office today, was told about it, kind of looked at it, and I was like, yo, that's really impressive. Went over towards Clayster's stream, and you actually heard the call-out come from Clay. He calls to Attach, Slack's his last alive, get on the bomb. And there was no hesitation from him. He immediately jumps on the bomb, and they get that defuse. So some good teamwork and trust coming out from them early on.
Quality leadership.
Yeah, that's what you need.
I like this. Clayster and Enable on the same team. I think good things are going to come here for the youngsters on FaZe. So you go up 2-0. You have to kind of point out, though, in that last game, Renato was playing really well. The way he and Classic were kind of baiting and switching for each other, I think it's a preview of what we're going to see a lot more from this Elevate squad in the future.
Okay.
They weren't able to close it out here, but if Slack gets that early round 3 1v1 victory, if they don't make some mistakes going into round 10, I think you see Elevate taking this game. So don't take this as, oh, Faze is so much stronger than Elevate. I think this was just Elevate making a few small mistakes. Going into game 3, though, the mistakes continued. And really, we just saw Zuma at the start of this first round taking over everyone. All 4 players were up. Zuma shuts it down with the 3-piece, and then the perfect pass coming in from Attach. They were able to get some momentum rolling here. It was pretty even slaying-wise throughout, but you see at the end, you know, Classic again on top of the leaderboard for that Elevate squad. Faze just had too many guns in the second half of the game.
I mean, you look at some of Zuma's stats then. 9 uplinks and a 1.29 KD, goes 27 and 21. That's impressive play from him, and you know he's been aggressive with that SMG, especially on a map like Comeback. That's what you expect to see from a player like him, and you know, one of the reasons for Faze's success last night.
The one thing I didn't see was a whole lot of base control. Normally you're used to seeing Formal for Optic Gaming get on top blue. Clayser kind of doing that for his previous teams. There wasn't as much base control. It was a little bit more chaotic, as I feel the 2 teams were pretty even slaying-wise. So it really did come down to some of those big SMG battles. And Zuma stepping up, like you said, with the 1.29 was kind of the difference maker. But overall, and what I thought would be a Game 5 style matchup, this was a quick 3-0 for Faze. Great start to the Pro League.
I mean, you kind of look at those games and, you know, game 1 and 2, very close. You know, if Faze don't have a sensational second to last hardpoint, they don't win that game. In fact, it finished, what, 16-point margin? Like, that's a very, very close game. They go 45-0 on the second to last hill.
Right.
Like, if that doesn't happen, you know, they start the series 1-0 down. And I feel that's kind of been the story so far in the first week of the Pro League so far, at least, is kind of teams making a couple of mistakes here and there and just clutching up. We've seen a little bit of sloppy play, but
there's been a lot of hardpoint comebacks so far as well, where one team leads for about 80% of the game, and then it comes back down to the final 2 minutes, and someone's able to turn around. We'll talk about one of those a little bit later, but up next, we got to talk about Epsilon. Coming into the night, we said Epsilon is struggling, 0-2, not the best start to the league. We talked about how important it is to get off to a good start, and here they were going up against an Orbit squad that hasn't been looking too strong. They outslayed Isolation, but still managed to lose both of those hard points in their previous matchup. Impressive. So this was a big series for Orbit, and I wanted to see, had they learned anything when they started off with the first hard point of the day? Well, it looks like they did, because on Orbit's host, they were able to go 250 to just 142. They were absolutely shutting down Royalty. Accuracy was doing such a great job of controlling Green. He and Vicento, every time on Detroit, when Green was the hard point coming up, they rotated early, and they got them about 30 points, if not more, by simply locking it down. I was impressed with the way that they've kind of adjusted, and Accuracy was actually doing really well with the sub last night.
Okay, that's good, because I feel like Orbit is that type of team who, when it clicks, everything should be okay, and they should be a team definitely fighting for that top 8 place, trying to go to the season finals. It's just a strange situation they're in, you know, outslaying opponents and losing. That's easily fixable. It's when you're not outslaying and you're getting beaten, it's like, well, at that point, you just need to try and kill things, and that comes down to individual talent. The talent's clearly there. It's just trying to piece that together in a way that you can successfully win matches.
And it was a bit surprising to see Epsilon struggling on that slaying side. But game number 2, much closer than game 1. It wasn't a 100-point rout. This one went the distance. It started with Epsilon. Some nice play from Nagafen and Remy working in a 2v2. You see the trust. Remy unable to get it this time around, but later in the game, you'll see Nagafen with some great cover fire. It really came to a lot of 1v1s, 2v2s. I thought this was one that Burns was going to clutch up. 1v2, had both players in the tiny building, almost comes in with the melees. Later in the game, you can see it, round 9, Royalty could not finish his kill. The windmill, Nagafen left in a terrible scenario, what should have been another round. You now see Orbit on game point, but this is when they clutched up. Nagafen in the 1v1 wins his fight there. Then you see the back cover. They are going to take it 6-5 in the end. Nagafen dropping 15 and 6. We didn't show enough of his highlights there, but the man simply put the team on his back.
I think that's what they kind of need when it comes to Search and Destroy. They need Nagafen to be kind of going how he used to when he was playing under TR. If you watch him play Search and Destroy when he was playing under Team Revenge, he was kind of, I don't want to say sneaky necessarily, but he was very, very smart in his positioning and his playmaking abilities, and that's kind of what you saw in that game specifically. And as long as he can do that, Epsilon should be good in Search and Destroy.
Especially in that round 11, so you basically had your teammate watching your back, your Nagafen, you know there's going to be pressure coming from the front. Instead of just going for the full plant, like you saw him fail in the second round. This time, he fakes the plant, baits out that player, wins his clutch 1v1, and then his teammate is able to finish burn. So I like that he kind of learned throughout that game. The trust isn't there 100% for Epsilon yet, but they're still capable of pulling off those big plays. So Epsilon tied it up, 1-1 now. We go into uplink. This one honestly wasn't so fun to watch if you're an Epsilon fan. They had some great opportunities early in the game. They were not able to put in their first 4 points. So first opportunity to score 4 points, they got 0 out of it. Orbit ends up beating them by 3, 9-6, and some nice rotations. When Orbit saw Epsilon fail, they're able to hit the fast break through green and able to get a dunk of their own.
See, I love the way that they're playing uplink right now. I don't know, there's something about them, which is why I predicted Orbit to win this one, thanks to a little bit of help from Max, who kind of gave me a little bit of encouragement to go with Orbit when everyone else went Epsilon.
Yes.
But looking at the way that they've been playing so far in the season, they should be winning these respawns. There's no reason for them to be dropping them, and it's nice to kind of see it clicking. And as long as this can continue, as long as this isn't kind of like a fluke day where everything just happened to work, if they can continue it, as I said earlier on, this should be a really good team throughout the season.
So Orbit wins the first hard point dominant fashion. They win the respawn in uplink, but then the second hard point came around, and this was total opposite of game number 1. More than a 100-point thrashing. This is a 119-point victory coming from Epsilon as they were able to force the Game 5. And really, Game 5, this was one of the most memorable moments of the night. Both teams going back and forth the entire way. We're going to take a look at some of the action, starting with round 10.
Together, a really good game. But here we go. 1 round away. Can Orbit close it out and knock Epsilon to 0-3 in the Season 3 League?
This is enormous for Epsilon, and they're going to get first blood. Swanee and Royalty in the kill feed. Faceno and Happy, last 2 up now for Orbit, trying to rotate back over to A. And you see Happy has been located up top. Faceno's still yet to be seen.
And this has all the makings of around 11 right now. Happy gets some shots in the player back rocks. Not able to clean that up. I mean, I guess they should just try to go for a plant, try to get it down, and hope for a miracle right now. That'd be the only way they could.
So you hear me even saying it at this point, really, you see Faceno Happy 2-on-4, wasn't looking great. Nagafen not having the huge S&D game like he had the first Solar, just 3-8 coming into this round 11, and this is where it gets went terribly wrong for Epsilon.
Yeah, if you're an Epsilon fan, you might want to close your eyes because we saw this play earlier on. I tried to kind of go a little bit more further in depth into it and figure out exactly what happens. You've heard us say the word misplay a lot throughout our recap so far in week 1, and this is definitely one which is going to haunt Epsilon. You got to remember at this point, it's a game 5, it's a round 11, they're 0-2 in the league right now. This win is massive for them. It finally gives them that win, stops a horrible 0-3 start, and then pretty much everything which could go wrong goes wrong, Chris.
He's been playing so aggressive. He's going to be coming.
The teammate by Nagafen. And Nagafen, he threw those right off the spawn. You lose Royalty instantly. 15 seconds in, you're already down 2 players.
I mean, that's your bomb carrier as well. It just hasn't gone well. And the nades he was trying to go for was to try and stop that top jungle rush. It's just he completely misplaced them. They bounce back and then they kill his teammate. And in all honesty, I think that goes down to communication once again. I hate to keep harping on about it with Epsilon, but we heard Swanee talk about it, and there's no reason why Nagafen should be nading that and Remy rushing that. That's clearly lack of communication. Either he hasn't listened or Nagafen didn't call that was the game plan.
I was pretty impressed that Swanee and Nagafen were able to last this long. They were able to go pick up the bomb and get it over to the A site. Swanee unable to finish his first kill at the top, was able to get 1 pick there, but then he's just swarmed at the end. Great patient play from Orbit. I think that was kind of the takeaway from the S&Ds last night, but more importantly, this is Epsilon choking in the biggest moment of the game. You force round 11, the team nade on your bomb carrier to start the final round.
Didn't go well, and that puts Epsilon, as I said, at 0-3 to start the season. Not, I imagine, how Swanee was looking at his ventures in North America once again.
Pretty good start for Orbit now, back up to 500.
Even.
So
decent for them.
We'll see what they can do throughout the remainder of the season. Of course, tonight it's day 4. We have 2 more matches to cover from day 3, though, when we return from this commercial break.